Hey, happy Thursday. I am just going to go live today with Matt. We did it a couple of weeks ago, you might remember, and we sort of talked about how to stay positive through these times, and today we're talking about happiness. So I'll just wait for Matt to request and make his request. There he is. Hi, Matt. Make your request and join. Here we go. Okay, I've got my bunny here. I've got my water. I'm ready to go. Hi, Matt.
Hey, Maggie, great to see you.
Gotta like tilt it, I think, so people can see my head. There we go. What are you drinking?
I am drinking a blend between those water, it's in this fancy new cup,
Yeah.
and so water, Gatorade.
Hmm.
I have a blend of ashwagandha, ginseng, tea,
Cool.
so on. Yes, that's good. And I have 1 drop of zennacrine,
Awesome. Which is for your liver.
right? 1 drop of on guard,
Okay, for your immune system.
and 1 drop of turmeric.
For inflammation. Look at you go. How
What's that?
does it taste?
It's pretty strong.
Yeah.
But I like it though. I appreciate the flavor. I like, if I'm going to drink something other than water, I want to taste the flavor. I'm same with tea. If I want tea, I want to taste the tea.
Okay, yeah.
So I quite like 1 drop of each. I find the flavor is good. A couple times, 2 drops have fallen in, and that's a little bit much.
Yeah.
It actually doesn't feel very good in the mouth, so it's too strong.
Yeah, you can quickly go the wrong way.
Yeah, yeah. I found in this amount, I don't actually know. It's probably 8 ounces. It'll say on here how big the cup is, but I found with this size and 3 drops of this and some Gatorade and some other things, it's perfect.
Okay, and the Gatorade sweetens things up a bit, does it?
What's that?
The Gatorade sweetens things up a bit?
It does, because without it, it's quite strong.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, and a little bit of little bit of sodium and potassium, like a little bit of the electrolytes in there as well.
Right, of course. Yeah. Okay. So let's dive into our topic today, which is happiness and the pursuit of happiness. And, we were talking a little bit before about how, I mentioned the kind of quote, the mantra, happiness. We sort of think happiness is the destination when actually happiness is the journey. And I think now more than ever, it's really important to cultivate your happiness, right? Because there's a lot going on around us that does not make us happy. So what do you have to say on this topic?
I think it's wonderful. I think the books have been read entire careers just on the human happiness. So I mean, certainly, my thoughts are we're not going to solve all the problems, and we're not coming up necessarily with anything brand new. And maybe packaging may be a little bit different. But what I've seen over the years is many of us will run towards activities that we think are going to help us feel happy, and they just don't. And so one of the questions I ask is, okay, well, what really is it they're running towards? Because happiness, I mean, we need to define that. What does that mean for different people?
Hmm.
I mean, for me, happiness might mean one thing. For someone else, it's simply not going to make them happy. And does someone mean peace? Do they mean fulfillment? Do they mean love? Like, what is it that they're really looking for other than the umbrella of happiness? So when you know a little bit more about what we're looking for, we can define it more clearly and not be confused about what it is we want, and then labeling it as such incorrectly.
Okay, so like if some people are like, I'll be happier when,
Yeah,
that kind of gives you an idea of what they're after.
exactly. And we can assume that it could make someone happy. So let's say I'll be happier when I lose 20 pounds or move into a different house or get this particular job. And it's possible. It could contribute to your happiness. There seems to be a push away from sort of the coaching, self-help, self-development, spirituality world where don't ever attach your happiness to an outcome.
Right.
And I understand that because sometimes when we do, we don't allow ourselves to feel happy right now, whether the outcome happens or not.
Okay.
So that's part of the problem. However, we are always attaching something to somewhere in space-time. Because when something happens, we then filter that through our definitions of what it means when something happens. So right now, for example, I love talking with you. I love doing this work. I just love it. Right? So am I happy when I do this? Well, yes, I feel fulfilled. It jazzes me up. I think it's an important topic. But does that mean that I am not happy when I'm not doing it? No, it doesn't. So we're not assuming that I'm only happy when I'm doing a certain thing or when I have a certain outcome in life. That's too restrictive. Let's allow ourselves to be broad in the acceptance of what happiness means and what we're doing when we're happy.
Okay, so let's talk about, this is a big one for a lot of people, their job. They're not happy when they're doing their job, but they're a happy person. So how's it possible if you're like working your job 6 to 10 hours a day and you're happy while you're at work, but you're not happy in your job? You know what I mean?
You mean the task someone is doing?
Yeah. So maybe it's not what they thought, what they thought they would be doing, and they thought they'd do something better, and
Yeah, we want to nail down a little bit in terms of what our values are and what our needs are as a person. So, I mean, we can even use you and I as an example. We have some overlap in expertise. You have areas that it was way beyond my level of expertise, which is fantastic. That's the way it's supposed to happen. But we could be sitting down doing this right now, and it's the same action, but we have a certain relationship to the action. So we talk about someone in a job. Let's say someone's job is they're a creative design in clothing company. They love doing the art, the design, even whether it's a computer or a pen and paper, it doesn't matter what it is. They love that creative aspect. Mm-hmm. But as soon as they have to talk to someone who thinks differently about it than they do, they all of a sudden feel stress. So they don't really hate their job necessarily. They have an aspect of it that they are uncomfortable with, maybe because they don't have skills, maybe because they feel like they're undervalued or not being appreciated by the other person. So if we can sort of compartmentalize our understanding of what it is specifically someone's stressed about or unhappy about, then it's much more clear. So we don't paint in broad brushes, I don't like my work, or I don't like my job, or I'm unfulfilled in life. Right, narrow down a little bit more so we become less broad, I mean really less general.
I also know people who left their jobs that made them happy, and they're still unhappy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what do you do then?
Well, so the question is, what did you think you were going to get from leaving the job? Because we all do something, we think we're going to get something from it. Mm-hmm. So when we entertain an idea, say, well, what do I think I'm going to get from that action? Before you take the action. So we become clear about what is it that we're really looking for. Because people leave jobs frequently, and they, after the fact, oh man, I really shouldn't have done that. Is the grass always greener? Is it the task? Is it the group of people you don't appreciate working with? I've been involved in groups of people that, my experience at the time was dysfunctional, but the actual activity was great. And vice versa. I hated the activity, but it was a great group of people, so you put up with it. Some people don't mind that. So let's use it as a clear example. Do you have not anyone in particular, but do you have an example in mind that we could sort of drill down into?
Of someone who left and still weren't happy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So what did you find that their experience of after they left, what were they hoping to get? What ended up happening? What are they doing now?
Well, they're doing something great now, but they're still kind of miserable, like they still don't have the energy that they want. They don't, like life is, it's the lens that I think the problem is it's the lens that they look at life through. is not a happy lens. You know what I mean? So like, even though they like their job right now, they like this job better, but they're still just kind of, their outlook on life is miserable.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, they thought it was the job and so they left, but actually it's not the job, it's the lens on life.
Yeah. If we use very logically, we'll just use an equation, a numbers equation, 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, etc. And you have a number.
Mm-hmm.
When we look at the total number, we're like, I don't like that total number, so I'm going to get rid of a whole bunch of these variables, all these other ones. They all add up. So someone's constitution, their overall feeling of physical vitality, emotional vitality, support in life, are they experiencing love and gratitude? Are they appreciating anything? Do they have a moment to relax? Are they excited about anything in life? All these affects the filter, like you're saying, about how they're viewing what it is they're doing. That's why I spend so much time with people.
Mm-hmm.
But let's look at these before you make a massive change in life. Mm-hmm. Hey, if someone really wants to, I'm not going to tell them not to. It's completely up to them. But let's look at how fulfilled are you right now with your feeling of connection to humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have great relationships with people?
Mm-hmm.
And if not, let's work on that. Let's cultivate that, because that will transfer into their work. If they're feeling a little bit flat in general, well, what about being flat or being unhappy or being unfulfilled is contributing how you feel about your job?
Yeah.
Because you take a major change. It's a big change for some people to change their career, their job, or company, or whatever it is. So we need to know more about ourselves, basically, self-awareness.
Yes.
Yeah. And what is it that I'm looking for?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, a lot of people, you know, at some point in your life, you're like, I don't really know what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So, you know, how do you zone in on that?
Yeah, there's some people who do great work in this area. I'm happy to send that off a list of great people. But one of the things that we need to consider more is, when I was happiest in life, what were the circumstances?
A lot of people would look back to their childhood.
Yeah. And then something happened. What happened? Something happened.
Whew, that's a big one. Give us all a minute to breathe here.
Yeah. Oftentimes, if we're assuming that it's not an event, like a traumatic kind of event, mm-hmm. Oftentimes as we begin to adopt other people's version of what we should be doing to be happy or feel fulfilled. Mm-hmm. If I do this over there, I'm going to be happy. If I get a job at this company, I'll be happy. If I start my own business, I'll be happy. Because this person's happy over there.
Right.
And I am so inspired by them and what they're doing, I'm going to do that thing. And that's a bit of a recipe for a problem. Mm-hmm. Now, we can go through that experience. We can walk through the door. So let's say someone who's loves the idea of starting a business, small business on the side or a big company or whatever it is, and they walk through the door and they're in it and like, oh, this is really, really cool. I like it. And they stay. Fantastic. If they walk in, they dance around, they play with it a little bit for a year, 2 or 3, it doesn't matter. And then like, yeah, but this is really not for me. I'd rather be CFO over here, or I'd rather work at a help desk over here at this tech company. Doesn't matter what it is. Mm-hmm. But if you try something, at least you'll know. The key on that is not to identify with your experience in the moment. You will give yourself the freedom to explore without saying, I am this particular kind of person because this is my job title.
Yeah.
So for a lot of the, hey Mel, great to see you. Thanks for the wave. For the people that start a business, I'll take you as an example. You've been in business, you're doing amazing things, helping great people and your family and so on. It's not without challenges. You're starting a business, a thing that adds value to life. But there's all kinds of hats. You know, we walk into a grocery store, the average consumer is not thinking, what has to happen in order for me to buy this bag of pasta? They're just like, go buy the pasta and they leave. Mm-hmm. But to make that physical product in front of you, so many people had to do a great job.
Mm-hmm.
So when you a one-man shop, so to speak, one-person shop, you got to do everything. Unless you sort of bring people on or you change the dynamic or whatever your service provision is or product. So when you enter into that game, the game of business, we get to decide, is this really how I want to play with it? Is this really going to work for me? Is it fulfilling? And it might not be. Or you might have to just develop skills. And this is where when we have a sense of we're not feeling fulfilled or happy, well, is it just because we're not good at something? That's a different discussion as well.
Yeah, because, as an entrepreneur, business owner, like there's a lot of things in being a business owner that I'm not good at, that I don't bring me happiness, like accounting.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and when we're doing something we don't feel happy about, there is a certain degree. If we're the only one doing it, there's no one around yet to help. We do need to attach a little bit of, okay, well, what's the effect of that? Mm-hmm. And is the effect of that really important to me? So much will I have less resistance doing the activity. Then we just have to do it. But a lot of people like building businesses will have someone else come in. They'll play what this person will play and what I have to work at.
So if if someone's not happy in their job right now or their career, you recommend they kind of back that unhappiness.
Yes.
Like, is it the root of it? How would you do that?
Well, let's go back to the example we used about the person growing up. They were happy with certain circumstances in life, and then something happened. Something changed. Mm-hmm. So what was that thing? What changed?
Okay, yeah.
How did you start thinking differently about the world?
And can you do that on your own, or do you need like a third party to help you?
Well, I mean, you can do it on your own if you're really self-aware and you want to be particularly honest with yourself.
Yeah, you have to be.
Very. And it's more, sometimes we don't know when we're not being honest with ourselves. We have a certain way of looking at the world and we just assume that's correct. And it might be a version of correct, but there could be a more complete version that we're choosing not to look at because it's too painful. Well, I'm not saying it's too painful, I'm not looking there. It's just a function of the mind. So having someone else come in and sort of help guide what it is we don't want to look at can be deeply useful. Or just go into a meditative state, or some of the journeys work that I do is you go in and we engage a more complete version of our consciousness.
Totally.
So we're not cherry picking what's convenient.
And speaking of completeness, when I think of like things that I've explored together from in my own life that have happened, that have contributed to my unhappiness, you give me, I'm really narrowed in on it. And I only see it from one perspective. And I maybe have only seen it from that perspective.
Right.
So working with a third party, like someone like you, allows you to get a broader view of it or see it from a different position.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Our mind will do three things about the past.
Yeah.
It's going to delete, distort, or manipulate in terms of change the dynamic.
It's powerful.
So super powerful. So we have a memory from yesterday to 20 years ago, and we have a certain way that we play that memory out. Is that actually a complete memory?
Right.
Usually not, especially if it's a heightened emotional experience.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so working with someone else is powerful. One thing that, I often run into, so I work mostly with women, and, one thing that often comes out of results is their happiness, obviously, and their joy. And when I say like, what do you do that makes you happy? And they're often like, my kids make me happy. And that's wonderful. Obviously my kids make me happy too. My kids make you happy. Kids make us happy. That's their design. But we can't get all of our joy. That's so much pressure on our to be the source of our joy. But to we really need to get our own joy. And I find that it's hard when you're in your 40s to get back to cultivating your own joy. And so how do you recommend people find that joy again?
Well, they have to reimagine themselves, like literally reimagine who they are. Because if something is changing, and you're right, it's not our children's responsibility to make us happy.
No.
The children's responsibility is for themselves. Our responsibility to them is help them express the best of who they are and have an experience of life that's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of if we put that responsibility onto them, that's not a weight that is fair. So then in terms of finding ourselves, like, okay, well, I don't really know. Let's pretend I don't really know what'll make me happy. I don't really know what I want to do that's going to bring me joy. I have not really done that other than my children.
Mm-hmm.
That's a process. You not necessarily might find it in 2 minutes or a year. Try something. And that might be just try something. Try learning about food. Try start something on the side as a new job. Try a new hobby and see if that tickles your fancy. Read this book that might be a little bit different for you. Just get experience with something.
Mm-hmm. And
we'd be willing to be wrong. We're conditioned as we go through life that right is right and wrong is bad. And so we need to step into being being right. Wrong is right and good. Because now you can cross something off the list and say, okay, good. I don't like doing that.
Yeah.
No problem. Now I'll move on to something else.
Yeah. I think one easy one, and I think we talked about this last time, that you recommended to me was like make a playlist of music that shifts my state into a happy, and that works, especially late. I find like I'm weighted down by around me in the world. If I listen to my music that like fills me up, then it's awesome. I dance and move and feel happy. And then I'm in the kitchen doing that. Eva comes in for a snack and then she's dancing and we're dancing together, sharing our happiness, so music is a good one.
It is a good one. And that makes me think of the point of when we change our state into feeling lighter and then behave from that state, it's really useful if we have a circumstance around us that we don't love. So a lot of us do right now. This is a very challenging time for many, many people. And so when we experience lightness, then go and do something from that. Rather than, oh, this is light. Oh, fantastic. I'm going to go have a nap. Or, oh, I feel really light. I feel really happy. Oh, great. Let's watch a Netflix episode or let's go for a walk, which is wonderful. Obviously, I'm all about if that's what you need to do, that's what you need to do. But if we're doing that activity as a means to escape a solution to a circumstance we don't like that we have control or influence over, that's moving away from being empowered and running toward being disempowered.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So can you say that again?
Yeah, we're basically running away from being empowered. So if we're involved in activity and then we're just so happy to have the weight off of our shoulders in a moment regardless of circumstance. But if we want the circumstance to change and we can and want to contribute to that, from that state of a little bit of lightness, then we need to go doing that thing.
Okay. So how can we do that?
Well, if you know what it is, then do that. I don't know, whatever it happens to be. If you need skills to be able to do that, then the skills of, if you're in business, the skills of marketing or hiring, maybe you have to fire somebody. Maybe they've been around for too long. They're like, you're bringing the whole company down, or they're a client or a customer and they're not helping themselves or yourself or whatever it is. Then you just let them go. You need to let go of the dead weight. Now, because that also is it's very, very important to appreciate that we are in partnership all the time. And if the partnership isn't working, releasing one partner lets them also thrive because they're not having a good time either.
Right.
So letting the dynamics go that are unhealthy is really good for both parties,
Okay.
right? So, and then, so let's say you have skills. So, um, if there's a relationship struggle or stress in intimate relationship, like with your spouse or your partner or your kids or whatever it is, then are there skills that I genuinely need to practice to help the relationship? And if there are, be very honest and say, "This, yes, there are." Wonderful. What are they? Or if you don't know what the skills are, why isn't it working? That will lead you to know what you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is a third-party conversation. I think is really valuable. I think it's really valuable to have with someone who is not involved in the mess
Yeah.
or the chaos or whatever's going on, and to let you think differently about it.
So let's talk briefly, we've got a few more minutes left. If anyone has any questions that they want to ask, Matt and I are talking about happiness. So if you want to ask a question, please pop it in the comments. But let's talk about relationships and happiness. How, I have a teenager in the house and a husband who's an entrepreneur. When those two people and even girls can affect my happiness, and I might wake up feeling amazing and be like, it's a good day, like I did my grounding, I did my meditation, I'm feeling great, and then I walk into the kitchen and I've got to wake up a grumpy teenager. I'm being dramatic. This is not, Callum is not a grumpy teenager, but sometimes moods of others can affect happiness, and I'm like, like I'm feeling so good, why did you wreck my date?
Okay, so tough love. No one wrecked your state.
Right, I allowed them to wreck my state.
No, because they matter to you, right? So you didn't come into the situation neutral. You came in really, really happy because you care about their state, and they're in kind of a sour state. You're like, oh, I don't want you to be, so I'm going to kind of come with you on that.
Okay.
Because I care that you're not in a good state. If it was a complete stranger, and you were walking down the street, and they were kind of in a sour state, and you were in a great state, and you didn't notice, the effect would be close to zero.
Right.
So it's just the nature of caring about people.
Okay.
And they're people that's in your life. So that's not a problem. So just in terms of, okay, well, if he's feeling that way, can I help? And if not, I can't help.
Mm-hmm.
You do you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can, then wonderful, beautiful, fantastic. Do what you can.
Okay.
Yeah. Because we really do get too attached to external support to validate our feelings. I'm feeling this way. I walk into a room, someone else is not feeling that way, so therefore all of a sudden I'm affected and I'm happy and it's their fault.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really work like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not to say we're not affected, of course. Right? So if Rebecca's having a fantastic day and I'm having not a great day, I'm going to come up, she's going to come down, and that's just, or vice versa, just the way it plays out.
Mm-hmm.
Again, because we're in partnership with other people alive.
Mm-hmm.
We're not looking to be a silo, and we're not looking to blame or give too much power to anyone else about how we're feeling or our experience of life.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing we talked about kids before. It's not their responsibility to make us happy.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's not anyone else's responsibility to make me sad. They didn't make me sad necessarily.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Okay. So to sort of wrap up, next step, that people could do for their happiness, one would be to find the source of their unhappiness.
Mm-hmm.
But if you really don't know what that is, how do you find the source of it?
You know how you feel. So, and you know what, typically we'll know what triggers us into feeling unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel less happy when I think about this thing or I do this activity.
Well, less happy when COVID news. And so let's unpack that for a minute. You know, I just read a headline, cases are rising, second lockdown is looming, you know, like second wave, blah, blah, blah. How can you help people there? I think it can be a daily occurrence for some people.
Yeah, and I think we may have touched on this last time too, we are programmed to avoid negativity, but we run towards it to make sure that we don't get hit by a surprise threat.
Okay.
So that sort of is a DNA thing for people, humans. Actually, biology will do the similar. But unfortunately, media still is a business. And they have to sell headlines or sell readership. So there is a perspective that is being shared in a headline. It's designed to grab your attention. That's what it's supposed to do. It's usually not. Even when great things are happening in the world, it's usually not great things all over the headline. Mm-hmm. So search them out. If you want a complete picture of what's going on with the world, COVID is not a complete picture. It's not. People dying is not a complete picture. People being born is not a complete picture. People starting businesses and excelling, it's not complete. People starting business and failing, not complete. You know what I'm saying? Like nothing in of itself is complete. So if someone's feeling overwhelmed about the headlines around COVID-19 or lockdowns or whatever it is, understand it's not a complete picture. Mm-hmm. We're looking at one piece of a puzzle of thousands. It's an important piece. We don't want to negate, we don't want to really say it's not important. It is important. Mm-hmm. It's one piece out of many. What am I going to do today, given that piece exists?
Yeah.
And then you can really move from a good place from there. Yeah. Now, there are some people, I acknowledge, obviously, that are experiencing that piece is bigger in their puzzle. Mm-hmm. So as an example, I was in the hospital getting some stitches out of my hand last week, maybe, or a week and a half ago. Time is it's so busy with so much things going on. And there are people in my life, my physical health is a piece. In someone else's life, their physical health is such a bigger piece because they're having a problem with it. Mm-hmm. So we completely respect that. Mm-hmm. We're not minimizing someone else's size of that piece of their life.
Right. Yeah.
But we have to also respect what ours is.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and zoom out sometimes when we're so zoomed in.
Super important. If you have a cut on your hand, your body is not going to die because you have a cut. But if all you're seeing is that cut, mm-hmm. It's a big deal. It's like huge deal. Oh my God, my skin is broken open.
Yeah.
And it is. That's correct. Mm-hmm. But the scope, like I say, zoom out. What's going to happen with that? Mm-hmm. Is that in of itself a huge deal, mm-hmm. or is it little?
Yeah.
Or smaller, Mm-hmm. You don't want to take away from someone else's experience of life. You want to say, okay, what does that mean to me? How can I contribute? Where can I move forward? Take meaning from it and then move from that place.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so let's wrap up. Next time, maybe we'll talk about awareness and developing your awareness.
That's such a good one.
So in 2 weeks, we'll meet again here. If anyone has any questions, just leave them in the comments and we'll check. If anyone has any ideas for topics they want to discuss, you're more than welcome to put that in the comments too, or just DM. And Matt, we can find you. What's your Instagram name, Matt?
Matthew Craig Diamond.
Okay, Matthew Craig Diamond. And I'm Maggie71. We're both on Instagram and Facebook. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to either of us.
For sure.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Max.
Okay, take care.
Yeah.
Bye.